rejects the use of any fiscal data of federal employees being unlawfully obtained, being placed on administrative leave, being fired, or forced to resign or retire from federal service. The Privacy Act of 1974 allows for financial data of federal employees to be used, if needed, for background checks, counterintelligence purposes, or other law enforcement purposes. This amendment is meant to ensure that the insiders or those with conflicts of interest, clearly, and the ultra-wealthy do not use fiscal systems or financial data to make decisions about Americans for political or business-related reasons, or traffic with information on their own behalf where they hold clear conflicts of interest. Similarly, I reject artificial intelligence capabilities being placed on federal financial systems without the proper safeguards in place to maintain and govern such uses of AI. I support the responsible use and protection of all fiscal systems and financial data of federal employees, as well as appropriated funds for foreign assistance and training programs for government personnel. I support taxpayer rights to have their fiscal information maintained securely and handled properly without fear of judgment or reprisal by the appropriate persons, and I support the process by which funds are legally authorized and appropriated by Congress and the legal systems needed to safeguard subsequent expenditures. To conclude, access to U.S. government fiscal service systems and systems of record has already occurred by DOGE, creating uncertainty and chaos impacting personnel across our federal workforce, foreign allies, and corporate partners. Finally, I urge my colleagues to please support my amendment to ensure unelected oligarchs and those with money and political power are not able to weaponize our financial systems, disrupt our nation's critical workforce, damage federal systems for upholding privacy, and our congressional power of the purse to appropriate funds. We must protect our taxpayers and our workforce, both public and private sector, from inappropriate and unlawful access and the use of their private financial information and the systems on which it resides. The Privacy Act of 1974 clearly governs the collection, maintenance, use, dissemination of information about individuals that is maintained in the systems of record. An unelected billionaire who holds 3 citizenships and whose conflicts of interest must be considered when delving into the private records that are held securely by the government of the United States. Our national security personnel, our federal contractors, all will be impacted by this. This snooping heightens risk for adversarial targeting or inappropriate use. Any access by unqualified persons to banking information of foreign entities risks damaging foreign partnerships, diplomatic relations, and national security. And finally, artificial intelligence is still a new and emerging capability with little codified governance. Introducing this capability into federal financial systems, especially by anyone with business interests in its adoption, would bring unprecedented risk to the integrity and safety of our fiscal systems and the people they serve. I urge you to please support my amendment on behalf of the American people to provide greater protection to sensitive taxpayer data, uphold Article I congressional authority, and ensure critical partnerships and our citizens' private records are not damaged by billionaires ransacking our federal government. Our financial system mustn't be weaponized against our own people. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you late in the day, and I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Kaptur. At this time, I have no questions. Mr. McGovern.
I want to ask unanimous consent to insert into the record an amendment testimony from Representative Hernandez in support of amendment number 15. And
without objection.
And I would just say to Congresswoman Kaptur, I agree with your amendment. It is disturbing that this is happening and there's so little transparency. And I doubt very much that this committee, unfortunately, will make your amendment in order. But I would like to think that some of my Republican friends might demand better oversight by congressional committees to see whether there is a conflict of interest and to see what is happening. I mean, I've been at town meetings and people are asking questions. They just want to know the information, and they can't get it. So, again, I thank you for being here, and I yield back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGovern. Ms. Kaptur, I've just been given an amendment that was submitted by you, which is not the same as what your testimony is. And I'm curious about that. Do you have another amendment that you have submitted? Because the amendment that I have, it begins in section 2001 with respect to general government, 800, increase the amount of budget authority and outlays for the applicable fiscal
the what,
year as
ma'am?
follows, and adjust other levels as appropriate. Is that is the amendment that we have from you? So
I don't know if
happy-
another one was submitted. I really don't know.
Okay, well,
But this is the one I want considered. And where's my guy here? Were two amendments submitted? Okay. So this relates to Section 2001.
section 2001, right, okay.
Resolution 14.
Okay,
Do you want me to come back tomorrow?
no ma'am, no ma'am. Well, thank you very much. Let's see, Ms. Fishbach. Ms. Scanlon. Mr. Norman. No. Mr. Neguse. Ms. Houcher. Ms. Ledger Fernandez.
No, thank you very much, Representative Cassidy. You're always going to be really important economic facts. Rules Committee, I appreciate that, and I yield back.
Mr. Langworthy. Mr. Scott.
I don't have any questions, Madam Chair, but I would just like to point out that obviously a lot of money went somewhere, and I think that some of the investigation should include, whose bank account that money went into for, all those grants through USAID. And I think there needs to be criminal investigation of where some of the money was going.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith.
No questions.
Mr. Jacks.
No questions.
Okay, thank you
Okay.
very much.
Okay, Madam
Ms.
Chair, we will submit whatever supplementary information is needed to clarify the amendment and its purpose.
Thank you.
Thank you very
We
much.
appreciate that. Seeing no other members wishing to testify on HJ Res 20, HJ Res 35, or HCon Res 14, this closes the hearing portion of our meeting. The chair will be in receipt of a motion from the gentlewoman from Indiana, Ms. Houchin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I move the committee grant HJ Res 20, providing for congressional disapproval under Chapter 8 of Title 5, United States Code of the rules submitted by the Department of Energy relating to Energy Conservation Program, Energy Conservation Standards for Consumer Gas-Fired Instantaneous Water Heaters, a closed rule. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the joint resolution. The rule provides that the joint resolution shall be considered as read. The rule waives all points of order against provisions in the joint resolution. The rule provides 1 hour of general debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Energy and Commerce or their respective designees. The rule provides 1 motion to recommit. The rule further provides for consideration of HJ Res 35, providing for congressional disapproval under Chapter 8 of Title 5, United States Code of the rules submitted by the Environmental Protection Agency relating to waste emissions charged for petroleum and natural gas systems, procedures for facilitating compliance, including netting and exemptions, under a closed rule. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the joint resolution. The rule provides that the joint resolution shall be considered as read. The rule waives all points of order against provisions in the joint resolution. The rule provides 1 hour of general debate, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Energy and Commerce or their respective designees. The rule provides 1 motion to recommit. The rule further provides for consideration of HCon Res 14, establishing the congressional budget for the United States government for fiscal year 2025 and setting forth the appropriate budgetary levels for fiscal years 2026 through 2034 under a closed rule. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the concurrent resolution. The rule provides 3 hours of debate with 2 hours confined to the congressional budget equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on the Budget or their respective designees, and 1 hour on the subject of economic goals and policies equally divided and controlled by Representative Swikert of Arizona and Representative Beyer of Virginia or their respective designees. The rule provides that the amendment printed in the Rules Committee report shall be considered as adopted, and the concurrent resolution as amended shall be considered as read. The rule permits the chair of the Committee on the Budget to offer amendments in the House pursuant to Section 305A5 of the Congressional Budget Act of 1974 to achieve mathematical consistency. Finally, the rule provides that the concurrent resolution shall not be subject to a demand for division of the question of its adoption.
Thank you, Ms. Houchin. You've now heard the motion. Is there any discussion or amendment to the rule?
Madam Chair.
Mr.
I
McGovern.
have an amendment to the rule. I move the committee make and order amendment number 5 offered by myself and Ranking Member Angie Craig of the House Agriculture Committee, which prevents cuts to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. By striking the reconciliation instructions to the Agriculture Committee, this amendment protects SNAP for the 42 million people in this country who rely on these modest benefits to afford food. It is our most effective tool to reduce food insecurity for families in every one of our districts. Again, as I mentioned before, the average SNAP benefit today is about $2.06 per person per meal. My Republican friends want to reduce that down to $1.60. I find it absolutely shameful that this majority is seeking to gut SNAP by nearly 25% to fund tax breaks for billionaires and corporations. I've never heard anything so cruel in my life. Republicans on this dais have a choice to make right now. A yes vote means that you are standing up for working people, kids, veterans, seniors, and people with disabilities who rely on these benefits to survive. A no vote means that you care more about tax breaks for billionaires than food for working families.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, the questions on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
For a roll-
The amendment's not agreed
As for
to.
roll call.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy.
No.
Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin.
No.
Mrs. Houchin, no. Langworthy.
No.
Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott.
No.
Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith.
No.
Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack.
No.
Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern.
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon. Aye. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse.
Aye.
Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Lesher Fernandez.
Aye.
Ms. Lesher Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair.
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Is there another amendment or discussion?
Madam Chair, I have an amendment to the rule. I move the committee make and order amendment number 77 offered by myself, which extends tax cuts only for people making under $400,000 per year. You know, when they talk about their awful tax scam enacted during the last Trump presidency, my Republican colleagues like to leave out the fact that the richest people in this country, millionaires and billionaires, got 288 times more of the benefit than regular working-class people, like teachers and firefighters. Let me repeat that. The richest in this country are getting 288 times more tax cuts than the average worker. That is wrong. This amendment is very simple. It extends tax cuts only for people making under $400,000 per year. It's a chance for my Republican colleagues to put their money where their mouth is. If you want to have a tax system that puts middle-class families ahead of billionaires, you should support this amendment. The yes vote on this amendment extends only the tax cuts for middle and working-class families. A no vote continues our unfair tax system that rewards billionaires over regular people.
Is there further discussion on Mr. McGovern's amendment?
I think Mr. Neguse, yeah.
Mr. Neguse?
Yes, I thank the chairwoman. I certainly support the ranking member's amendment, which I think is thoughtful and clarifies for the public what this debate really is all about. I was remiss in missing some of the debate earlier on this bill, and so I thought I might just offer a colloquy if my colleague from the good state of Texas is willing to engage me. But our good friend and former Rules Committee member, Mr. Massey, I think offered perhaps the most salient indictment of the Republican budget resolution thus far, when he released a statement earlier today on X saying, quote, "If the Republican budget passes, the deficit gets worse, not better." And I just wonder if there's, perhaps this is already debated at great length. Okay, I missed the fun.
It wasn't debated at great length.
It
but
wasn't
I mentioned
debated?
it.
Well,
Yeah.
at this point, we have an opportunity, if Mr. Roy or Mr. Norman care to opine on that. But having great respect for Mr. Massey and enjoying my service with him on this committee, I would be remiss if I didn't give the two of you an opportunity to explain your change of heart and why you've become pro-deficit all of a sudden. I mean, I don't, or is this inconsistent with Mr. Massey?
Like,
Happy to yield to the gentleman.
No, I'll just say, we debated this earlier and had a significant amount of conversation about it. Mr. Massey is not here to make his point. He'll be able to make that on the floor, should he wish. And as it's not surprising, I have a lot of respect for Mr. Massey and a lot of agreement in many respects with Mr. Massey on a lot of different issues, including concerns about what we do with respect to spending and tax policy. If Mr. Massey were here, we would have engaged in a colloquy between the two of us and with you about these issues. We explained earlier when Mr. Arrington was here about my belief that assumption of 2.5% growth pegged between historic 3.2 and CBO 1.8, which is basically the middle spot of there. That plus the spending cuts, which I understand there's some disagreement on spending reductions on the other side of the aisle, those two things combined, I believe, gets it to deficit neutrality. Would I like to go further? Absolutely. But this is a effort to move the ball forward. And I would note that we worked hard, including Mr. Norman and I, to include a tie between the tax policy and the spending policy, which was an important provision for us in the Budget Committee, so that there would be requirements of spending restraint and that any tax restraint would be tied to that spending restraint, which was a fairly significant change. I yield back.
Well, I appreciate the gentleman's response. I would just simply say, as you said, and you're right to note, Mr. Massey is not here. He no longer serves on this committee, and I think we know the reason why. If he were here, he'd be speaking truth to power with respect to his views on this particular bill, as he made clear to the American public by virtue of his post. No doubt that this bill increases the deficit. He knows it. The American people know it. He's no longer on this committee to say so, but I look forward to the debate on the floor tomorrow when I suspect he'll make that argument. And I yield back, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the amendment?
Madam Chair, I would just,
Yes,
I would
Ms.
just like to
Leatherton.
point out that this amendment asks the Republicans and Democrats on the committee, who do you stand with? And I definitely stand with our working families and not the millionaires and the billionaires, not the person who is earning $4 million an hour who will gain from this. So I speak in favor of the amendment and hope all of our colleagues will stand with working and middle-class families.
Well, I want to move this debate along as quickly as I can tonight. I think we've heard this in different places today. But I want to get into the record some facts, not lies and not distortions. The 2017 Trump tax cuts lowered tax rates for all Americans. In fact, the lowest earning individuals gained the most benefit. The bottom 20% of earners, those with incomes up to $26,000, saw their federal tax rate fall to its lowest level in 40 years. Earnings under $100,000 received an average cut of 16%, while the share of taxes paid by the top 1% increased. So what happened in 2017 was not simply a cut for the rich. If these tax cuts expire, it will devastate our nation's families, workers, and small business owners. The average taxpayer would see a 22% tax hike, meaning on average they'll pay $1,695 more in taxes per year. 40 million families will see their child tax credit cut in half. 26 million small businesses hit with a 43.4% top tax rate. This is over 20 points higher than what businesses pay in communist China. So I think it's important that we get these facts out, and I'm not going to repeat them over and over again because I want to get them in the record.
Madam Chair?
At one point.
Just to be clear, if I can, that my amendment would protect the tax breaks for middle-class families. It just wouldn't extend them to the very wealthy.
I understand what you said, Mr. McGovern. Now, hearing none, the question's on the amendment. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment's not agreed
That's
to.
for a roll call.
The gentleman, the clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy?
No.
Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott?
No.
Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith?
No.
Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack?
No.
Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Aye. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Aye. Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Ledger Fernandez? Aye. Ms. Ledger Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Madam Chairwoman. I have an amendment to the rule.
The gentleman will,
And again, I just want to make clear for the record, we support tax cuts for working families. We just don't support tax cuts for the very wealthy in this country, the millionaires and billionaires and big corporations. So I have another amendment to the rule. I move the committee make an amendment number 78, which prevents tax cuts for people earning over $1 million per year. So Republicans on this committee have made it clear that they're looking out for the interests of billionaires ahead of regular people by rejecting the last amendment, which would have prioritized working and middle-class people. You talk about the deficit and making tough choices all the time. I get it. But if you're truly concerned about the deficit and the debt, I think we can start by making the richest people in this country pay their fair share. So I'm offering this amendment, which is very simple. It prevents tax cuts for people earning over $1 million per year. Fewer than 1% of people in this country earn $1 million or more per year, and those people should pay what they owe. So a yes vote on this amendment prevents those making $1 million a year from getting another tax handout. A no vote, just to remind my Republican colleagues, is a vote to put people making over $1 million ahead of school teachers and firefighters, nurses, and police officers.
is there any further discussion on Mr. McGovern's amendment? Hearing none, the question's on the amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Mr. McGovern requests roll call. The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack?
No.
Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Aye. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Ledger? Aye. Ms. Ledger Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Any further discussion?
Madam Chairwoman, hard to believe that last vote, but I have an amendment to the rule. I move the committee make an order amendment number 79, offered by myself, which prevents tax cuts for people earning over $100 million per year. Madam Chair, every Republican just voted in lockstep to keep our unfair tax system, where billionaires pay a lower effective tax rate than working people. But I want to highlight how out of touch my friends are. Let's go from people earning $1 million a year to $100 million a year. I mean, surely you must think if someone makes $100 million a year, you shouldn't pay less in taxes than an average worker, right? Now, I did some research, and there are less than a dozen CEOs in this country who earn that much. Again, a yes vote on this amendment prevents people earning over $100 million per year from getting another tax break. So you should vote no if you want to side with the millionaires and billionaires over working people.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none, the question's on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed
That's
to.
for a roll call.
The gentleman asked for a roll call. The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin? Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott?
No.
Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? Griffith, no. Mr. Jack?
No.
Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Aye. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Ledger Fernandez? Aye. Ms. Ledger Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to, and I make one more quick comment about taxes. It's true the share of taxes paid by the top 1% actually hit new heights after the TCJA was enacted. Is there further
Yes.
discussion?
I have an amendment to the rule. I move the committee make an order amendment number 80, offered by myself, which prevents tax cuts for people with a net worth over $1 billion. Republicans on this committee just voted to protect tax breaks for people earning over $100 million per year. So I want to see how far they'll go. Will my Republican colleagues join Democrats to prevent tax breaks for billionaires? I mean, billionaires? There are 748 billionaires in the United States. That's it. And a lot of them pay a lower effective tax rate than the people we represent because of all the loopholes that you've been successful in getting into the tax code. So I asked my colleagues, who do you stand with? Your constituents or the billionaires? So a yes vote on this amendment means you stand with your constituents. A no vote is to vote to protect the 748 billionaires in this country from paying what they should pay in taxes.
Madam Chair,
Any further? Yep, Mr.
I
Scott.
would just like to point out that municipal bonds, those people own a tremendous amount of municipal bonds, and the gamesmanship in their actual tax rate, a lot of it comes from the fact that they're the ones that are actually buying the bonds to build the hospitals, the water systems, and everything else. Now, if you want to take away tax-exempt bond interest, then let me tell you something. You want to hurt a lot of the people in this country, take away the tax-exempt bonds from them.
My heart is aching for the billionaires, who, by the way, keep a lot of the money to themselves. So again, this is about whether
The money goes to build hospitals, schools. Yeah, just the facts. I know they get in the way sometimes.
Well, I disagree. So this is very clear. You can try to explain that to your constituents at a town hall.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Griffith.
Madam Chair, I'm just wondering, I don't know of any agency that keeps track of our net worth. So this would actually require expenditures in order to have an agency determine what the net worth of every American is. I think that's bad policy. I yield back.
But, and I also don't know how Mr. McGovern knows that these people pay less than other people. I'm not sure how you get that kind of information.
I can give you, I'm going to insert in the record a number of articles that will help explain that to all of you, okay?
Well, they're not government agencies, I would submit.
right.
Therefore, we'd have to create a government agency to determine the net worth of all Americans in order to make this amendment in order or proper.
Okay, I'm going to call the question.
Well,
I'm going to call the question.
Well, there's some people that want to debate.
There's
Well,
debate,
You're-
there's debate.
this is
I'd like to
debated.
have debate.
You're going to cut off debate?
I will shortly. Mr. Neguse?
I thank the chairwoman for her indulgence. I would just say, Mr. Griffith, again, let's just have an honest debate. Your concern cannot possibly be that you are worried that this will require an expenditure to create a new government agency to calculate the net worth of 740 people in a country of 330 million people, 740 billionaires, whom Mr. McGovern has made a reasonable amendment to simply suggest that perhaps these tax cuts shouldn't go to the 740 richest people in a country of 330 million people. None of these people are your constituents, I suspect. That the 740 billionaires in this country don't live in your district. There are a lot of people in your country, in your constituency, earning a living wage. And those are the people that Mr. McGovern seeks to protect. So you can take the stance that Mr. Scott did regarding municipal bonds, and I appreciate his point on that. I disagree with him, but nonetheless, That's a reasonable position to take. But this notion that the government is incapable of calculating net worth of billionaires and therefore we should let them off the hook and have whatever tax cuts they please, spare me, please. I mean, I yield back.
Thank you for yielding back. Ms.
Madam
Leisure
Chair?
Fernandez.
Yeah, I'd like to cede time to the ranking member.
I just want to ask unanimous consent to insert in the record from the Oxford Review of Economic Policy, what is the average federal individual income tax rate on the wealthiest Americans? And also the secret IRS files, trove of never-before-seen records reveal how the wealthiest avoid income tax in our country. And you know what? We should actually do a hearing on how people hide their wealth and how they play games. But I mean, there's a list of here, from Warren Buffett to Jeff Bezos to Michael Bloomberg to Elon Musk, shows what their true tax rate they pay is. And quite frankly, their effective tax rate is oftentimes less than a police officer or a nurse. There's something wrong.
Without objection.
Ms.
Okay.
Okay, and, you know, I think we need to remember that it is the job of the Internal Revenue Service to receive and to determine what the taxes are. And we are passing a resolutions that's going to set up a tax cut for those billionaires. And with regards to who we represent, Mr. Griffith, I would note that you represent the most people utilizing SNAP to put food on the table for their families, and the second highest number of people on Medicaid in this committee. And so the question is, are you going to be standing with those 740 billionaires and saying, I don't think they deserve this tax cut when it's going to come out of SNAP and Medicaid? I think that's what the amendment is going to, is are we going to be standing with the 740 billionaires, many of whom are constantly cheating on their taxes, which is another issue. But I think that that's the point that this amendment is making, is who are you standing with? Your own constituents, it's 156,146 constituents on Medicaid, 57,000 constituents on SNAP, or those 740. With that, I yield back.
Let's not let this mystery go very long. We'll find out who's voting how. The questions on the...
Chairwoman, I don't want her, I just want to insert one thing in the record, and I'll be quick. It's an article foundation explaining how the wealthiest taxpayers pay the highest effective tax rates in 2019. I know that data is updated, and since then, there's articles since then, but that the overall effective tax rates for the wealthiest 0.001% were at 41%, 47% when you include international, and it goes down the list, and overwhelmingly, it's the highest percentage of their income and percentage that is going to insert that in the record.
Without objection, we will enter that in the record. The question is on the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
As for recorded vote.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack? No. Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Aye. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Aye. Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Leisure Fernandez? Aye. Ms. Leisure Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Is there any other
Yes.
discussion or amendment?
I have an amendment to the rule. After that debate where my Republican friends were falling over each other to defend billionaires, which is something I haven't seen so overtly in a long time, but I move the committee make an order amendment number 53 offered by Representative Gray, which says that no tax cuts for billionaires if Medicaid is cut by a single cent. Now, this should be an easy one. Medicaid provides health insurance to nearly a third of Americans, including a lot of your constituents. It is a source of long-term care in this country, ensuring that seniors and people with disabilities are able to age with dignity. So I find it especially cruel that in this budget, Republicans are proposing to strip regular people of their health care and prevent access to long-term care, all to pay for tax breaks for the richest people in this country. The previous vote made clear that giving billionaires more handouts is the #1 priority of the Republican Party. Now we'll see if they will at least commit to not cutting Medicaid at the same time. So I say to my Republican friends, you can either be with the regular people in your district who rely on Medicaid to access health care and long-term care, or you can be with the billionaires. Which is it? So this amendment is simple. A yes vote means that billionaires don't get tax breaks if Medicaid is cut by a single cent. A no vote allows billionaires to get their tax breaks even if Republicans rip health care away from people.
Is there any further debate on the issue, on the amendment?
Madam Chair.
Ms. Leisure Fernandez.
So I think this is a whose side are you on amendment. Are you on the side of the 740 billionaires? It's such a small number. Or on the side of your Medicaid recipients? Mr. Scott, out of all the members on the committee, you represent the most people with marketplace insurance coverage under the Affordable Care Act and quite a few people on Medicaid. We already talked about the number of people that Representative Griffith has on Medicaid. Nearly all of us on this dais, nearly all of us represent over 100,000 people. Are you going to stand with your voters, the mothers with the babies, the people who are disabled, the children? Are you going to stand with them or the billionaires? That's what this motion goes to.
Madam Chair.
And I'd like to point out.
Mr. Scott, are you finished?
No, we're not finished. Matthew 25:30. When I was hungry, you gave me to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me to drink. When I was sick, you looked after me. Remember the people in your district who are hungry, who are sick, who need care. And with that, I yield back, Madam Chair.
Mr. Scott, you're recognized.
Well, Madam Chair, I appreciate quoting the Bible. I've read every word from end to amen, and I think the instructions are for us as individuals, not for the government. And the idea that taxing one person for the government to provide for something is the same thing as charity is just simply not an accurate rendition of the way we're supposed to conduct ourselves. And I'll leave that at that. But I want to say this. I'm one of those people that's in the marketplace in my district. And I have a $15,000 out-of-pocket. $15,000 out-of-pocket for my family in that marketplace where y'all promised if you got the Affordable Care Act, if you liked your insurance, you could keep it. And the system was going to be a whole lot better. And you know what? It got worse for everybody. And you want to know why rural hospitals are going broke? Because nobody can afford health insurance anymore. If they're in the marketplace, they got a $10,000 or a $15,000 out of pocket, and so they don't go get health care. That's the end result of the Affordable Care Act.
Madam Chair? Well, I would just simply say, Mr. Scott, and your solution is what? To eliminate Affordable Care Act tax credits? To gut Medicaid? In what universe do the solutions that you're proposing as part of this Republican budget solve the issues that you purport to identify? I would love to work with you on out-of-pocket caps. We've made some progress in that regard this last session of Congress with respect to pharmaceutical drugs and the Inflation Reduction Act. I'm all ears. I welcome that partnership, but I'm struggling to understand. You take issue with health insurance being expensive, and your solution is to cut the very subsidies that your constituents are relying on to try to access health care. Happy to yield to the gentleman. Am I missing something? What?
The subsidies simply make it cost more.
The subsidies make the cost more. Okay.
The subsidies make the overall cost of health care cost more.
Okay.
With that, I'll yield.
I hear you. So I would just, so it sounds like, and then I'm going to close, Madam Chair, but it just sounds like what you're suggesting is to your constituents, look, we know you're getting a subsidy, a couple $1,000s a year to help you access health care, and our solution to health care costs being too high is to take away the $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 of subsidies that we're giving you now. I'm not a mathematician. I'm not a healthcare executive. but I don't think you need to be one to understand that that is a bad deal for average Americans. And that's why I'll be voting no against this resolution. I yield back.
Mr. Roy?
Yeah.
You're recognized.
Yeah, Madam Chair, and to reinforce what the gentleman from Georgia was talking about, on Obamacare, I would not be able to go to MD Anderson, where I went 13 years ago for cancer treatment. I had a constituent just last year, and she unfortunately died of cancer this last fall, who was on Obamacare and was unable to go get the best treatment because Obamacare does not provide for that. And that's the nature of what we're, quote, calling coverage. But then to the point at hand with respect to Medicaid, and what we're talking about is trying to reform Medicaid, frankly, to make it function in any way, shape, or form as it was designed to function. Because now what we're talking about is a massively expanded population into the able-bodied. It has shifted resources from the most vulnerable. And now you've got states that are gaming it, like California, and states that are saying, well, they're going to set higher provider payment rates for the expansion enrollees, and giving doctors and hospitals explicit financial incentives to discriminate against traditional enrollees. You get a 90% federal reimbursement rate. Under FMAP for the expansion population is a much higher rate than for the traditional population, and states have an incentive to aggressively enroll in the expansion-eligible individuals, all of which diverts the resources away from the vulnerable. In other words, there are lots of ways we could reform Medicaid to actually make it in any way, shape, or form halfway function. But what we've done is obliterate it and then blown a hole in the deficit in the meantime. We've had a massive expansion in the cost of Medicaid over the last, much less over the last 2 years. And if you look at where it's projected to be $1 trillion by the end of this budget cycle if we don't do something to reform it and make our system work. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. Is there any further discussion on Mr. McGovern's amendment? If not, hearing none, the question's on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, no? No. In the opinion chair, the noes have it. The amendment's not agreed to. Mr. McGovern asks for a roll call. The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy?
No.
Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin? Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy?
No.
Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott?
No.
Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith?
No.
Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack?
No.
Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern? Aye. Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Aye. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Aye. Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Ledger-Fernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Ledger-Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair? No. Madam Chair, no. 4 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Are there other amendments?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I have an amendment to the rule. I move the committee make an order amendment number 81 offered by myself, which prevents tax cuts for billionaires while families struggle to put food on the table. Madam Chair, Donald Trump said he would lower costs. Has anyone here been to a grocery store lately? I don't know whether Donald Trump or Elon Musk have ever walked into a grocery store, but this past month has had the highest increase in food prices in over 2 years in this past month. And I think I saw somewhere that eggs are like $10 a dozen in some stores. And who has benefited? The billionaires who run the corporation they just voted to give tax breaks to. So here's another simple amendment. A yes vote says that billionaires don't get tax breaks if food prices are going up for regular people. A no vote allows billionaires to get their tax breaks, even if working people have to pay more at the grocery store.
Is there further discussion on the amendment? Is there further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, the question's on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Ask for a roll call. Yeah.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott?
No.
Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack?
No.
Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Aye. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Ms. Ledger-Fernandez? Aye. Ms. Ledger-Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
3 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
I have one further amendment, Madam Chair, for me. I move the committee make an order amendment number 82 offered by myself, which protects the refundable child tax credit. I was really struck by something that happened at the Budget Committee's markup on this awful budget resolution. Mr. McClintock, a Republican, said that he wanted to go after, quote, refundable tax credits, end quote. Now, I have to assume he's going after the child tax credit, which helps working people support their kids and buy necessities like food. And going after the refundable portion would reduce the amount of money that a lot of families with kids get back. So just to recap, Republicans just voted 6 times in favor of tax handouts to the rich and powerful. At the very least, they can vote to say that we won't take money out of the pockets of working-class families with children, right? So let's find out. On this amendment, a yes vote protects the refundable child tax credit, which puts money in the pockets of regular families. A no vote opens the child tax credit up to cuts, which would mean regular people lose money. I yield back.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, the question's on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed
We ask for a
to.
roll call.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott?
No.
Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith?
No.
Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack?
No.
Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Aye. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Ms. Ledger-Fernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Ledger-Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
3 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Madam Chair, I have an amendment.
You're recognized, Ms. Scanlon.
Madam Chair, my amendment, I would move the committee make an order amendment number 7 to HCon Res 14 offered by Representative McGarvey, which strikes the instructions to the House Committee on Education and Workforce in order to protect the National School Lunch Program, the National School Breakfast Program, and community eligibility provision for school meals from any cuts or reduction. This amendment would strike the instructions to prevent damaging cuts to schools, school meal programs, and education programs for kids trying to make it through the day with something in their stomach. It's unconscionable that this Republican budget would take food assistance from the mouths of kids. School meals programs are one of the most important anti-hunger programs that we have in this country to keep kids healthy and to help them learn. Cutting $330 billion in federal assistance to schools will have a devastating effect on our nation's children. It'll leave kids hungry. So therefore, I would urge a yes vote on my amendment.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Houchin, you're recognized.
thank you for recognizing me. That's just not true. There's not a single specific cut in this budget resolution to a program. To state that in the resolution we are cutting school lunches is just not factual. So I'm at a loss for words. I yield back.
Madam Chair?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. McGovern.
I'm going to yield to Ms. Scanlon in a second, but I'm at a loss for words, too. When your budget contains numbers that, extraordinarily high numbers that demand major cuts in programs, for example, in USDA, $230 billion, I mean, we know where those cuts are going to be. It's going to be in nutrition programs. To suggest that, oh, we don't, you know, we're not super specific, so therefore, you know, we get a pass to vote for this with no consequences. I'm sorry, we're not going to let that go by. This budget, if it were enacted and if it were the basis for reconciliation, would devastate the middle class and would stick it to poor people in a way that we have never seen. And by the way, it doesn't save any money. It doesn't balance the budget. It's going to provide tax cuts for wealthy people, and we're going to see the deficit continue to grow. We just don't share the same values or the same belief when it comes to what's reflected in this budget. And I yield back to Ms. Scanlon.
Thank you. I mean, yes, it's not specifically in the budget, but the numbers are in the budget. And where those cuts are supposed to come from was outlined in the wish list that was leaked from the Republican conference earlier this year. So it's, disingenuous to say that there won't be these kind of cuts when the only way you can reach the numbers that occur in this resolution would be if you make the cuts that we're talking about. And it's been acknowledged by our Republican colleagues, so that's all. Back.
Mr. Norman.
You know, we all know what this is about. This is just for supposedly political points. Let me just point out that, you know, in all due respect, it's so hypocritical of y'all. During the last 4 years, when you had people coming across this border, you had children who were being raped, you had fentanyl flowing in from China. Where was your voice then? Where was the words of you feel so sorry for the people who were killed by the illegals? You didn't say a thing. And now you're lecturing us, and just, I'll take as much time as it needs. We can sit here all night. I hope you put up 100 amendments like this. But it's really hypocritical for y'all when you stayed quiet with an inept president who couldn't even spell his last name, letting this country go to shambles and do the damage that he has done that's being corrected now. And, you know, keep doing it. The American people get where y'all are coming from. And, you know, keep what you're doing, because it's just, it's sad, really, because not one word was mentioned by a Democrat. I yield back.
Madam Chair, I need to correct the record, because in this committee, many of us spoke out against the terrible violence against innocent civilians and we go back and we'll provide you the record, Mr. Norman. I know you have selective memory when it comes to things like that.
Will you yield?
Yeah, I'm happy to yield. Well, I don't have the time. I'm just going at the good graces of the chair here, but I'm happy to yield.
Okay, where was the bill that you put up to build a border wall, to stop the immigration?
Well,
where were your words? You say the words, but there were no actions behind it.
Well, where's the border wall that you promised to build?
No, where was your,
Yeah,
you didn't do it.
I don't believe a border wall is the way you solve the
Okay,
problem.
then what solved
So,
it?
yeah.
You tell me, you let them in.
Well, but let's go back down to what this amendment is about. I know you don't want to talk about it, but let's talk about what this amendment is about. And that's what we're debating here right now. So you could vote no on it. You voted for billionaires over and over and over again today, over middle-class families and people struggling to get a middle class. If that's where your values are, fine. But let's talk about the amendment that Ms. Scanlon has.
Mr. Governor, it's just words, you know that.
Madam Chair.
I yield back.
Mr. Roy.
I would just bring it back to the point at hand, although I agree with the gentleman from South Carolina's overall point. I would just note that in terms of what we're putting forward in this budget, CBO baseline outlays are $85.7 trillion over 10 years. $85.7 trillion. The House instruction is for $84.07 trillion. That's what we're talking about. What we're saying is that for $84 trillion over 10 years, we can't do the business of government. It's absolutely laughable. And in fact, the only criticism that I think you could levy against it is that it's absurd that we're still talking about $84 trillion. And then we're not reducing that number further. $84 trillion is what this budget would put forward. I can frankly barely tolerate it.
And what's the debt?
Because it's so high, $84 trillion.
And what's the debt you're going to accumulate?
The debt that we would accumulate, we believe it would hold the line at the current $2 trillion level debt. The current $2 trillion debt, with the goal of having growth to be able to drive that down through regulatory policy and economic policy and unleashing American energy by repealing the Inflation Reduction Act, which gives billions of dollars of tax credits to billion-dollar corporations to the tune of $1.2 trillion, crushing American energy and forcing Americans to be living with inflation, destroying the average hardworking American's family budget. It is the inflationary pressures that is devastating hardworking American families. And you guys are playing the same old games of politics when it's American families getting crushed by Democrat inflationary pressures. And we're trying to put forward a responsible budget. And $84 trillion, America, is not enough for our Democratic colleagues. Not $84 trillion.
We're asking you not to cut food for poor people.
You don't have to.
Yeah, you are.
Come up with $84 trillion.
Madam Chair.
I want to make one quick comment. Ms. Scanlon told the truth a few minutes ago, and I didn't get a chance to say it. She says, yes, the numbers are not there to cut these programs, but we all know what's going to happen. So for the first time tonight, you all admitted that you're making up all of these things that you're saying.
Did not.
And I'm I'm going to get it out of the record tomorrow and use it in the debate, in the rule, because that's what you said. You said the number, it's not there. So for the first time tonight, you told the truth, and we've been saying that all evening. None of these things that you've made up are in this budget, none of them. And it's just, you're making things up as you go along. And the American people can read the budget and see that the cuts to SNAP are not there, the cuts to education are not there in the specific ways you talked about it. So they're not there. I'd like to move on tonight.
Is there a $230 billion cut in the agriculture section of the budget?
I'd like to move on because I think now we have on record that.
There's a $230 billion
What you
cut
want.
in the ag section of this bill.
Okay. Are there any further amendment? We're not on an amendment. Are we on an amendment? We
We're
are.
on Ms. Scanlon's
Okay.
amendment.
Your amendment. Okay.
Dealing with school
Any
lunches.
further discussion?
We wanted to protect schools.
Ms.
I believe
Ledger.
we're on Ms.
Fernandez.
Scanlon's amendment, and so I'd like to have discussion on it, and I'm going to yield to Ms. Scanlon at the beginning.
Yeah, as I said at the outset, I mean, Mr. Roy wants to talk about the trillions in debt. I want to talk about the kids in my district who are hungry, and that the budget proposed by the Republicans is going to threaten their ability to get school lunches. Because the only way you can make your budget numbers work in this resolution is if you make those cuts. And your own members have admitted that. So that's why we are seeking to protect it. If it's not true, vote for the amendment. I yield back to Ms. Ledger.
And Madam Chair, I believe when Representative Scanlon was saying is that you have suggested that there be cuts to the Education Committee and that the numbers are not there with regards to cutting. You cannot suggest a cut to the Education Committee of that magnitude without cutting school lunches. So let's be clear about what she was talking about. And indeed, Chairman Arrington circulated a menu of cuts in January, which included $12 billion of cuts to school meals. So when you tell education and workforce, cut $330 billion, we object. We say we do not want you to cut $330 billion of our children's education, and we are saying through this amendment, let's protect school lunches. So that's what this amendment does, is it would protect school lunches from the $330 billion of cuts that Republicans have suggested. It's a simple amendment. That's what it does. And I urge my colleagues to stand for education, to stand for healthy children, to stand for children who are not hungry when they go to school, and to support this amendment. And with that, anything else?
No.
I yield back.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, the question's on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no? No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment's not agreed
I would
to.
ask for a roll call vote.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? No. Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack? No. Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern? Aye. Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon?
Aye.
Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Ms. Ledger Fernandez? Aye. Ms. Ledger Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
3 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Any further amendments? Ms. Ledger Fernandez.
Madam Chair, I have an amendment to the rule. I move the committee to make an order amendment number 52 offered by myself. The wealthiest and most powerful Americans are contemplating a tax scam that does not help families afford groceries, buy a home, or make sure their children have a better life than they did. No, they're contemplating a tax scam that will continue to enrich themselves. I request unanimous consent to submit the January 10th, 2025 report from the Department of Treasury entitled "The Cost and Distribution of Extending Expiring Provisions of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Acts of 2017" into the record.
Without objection.
This report found that extending the Trump tax scam would give an extra $32,000 a year to those in the top 100%, or those earning about $750,000 a year. That windfall is more than half of my state's median household income, more than half. Extending the tax scam would provide an additional $314,000 a year handout to those in the top 0.1% every single year. The vast majority of working Americans would receive less than a few dozen dollars a month. If Donald Trump and Elon Musk really want to give massive handouts to themselves, millionaires and billionaires, if they truly believe that would help hard-working families afford groceries or buy a home, let's exempt those billionaires and millionaires who work for the federal government as political appointees from the tax benefits of this legislation. If your net worth is almost $400 billion like Elon Musk, you certainly don't need that extra money, do you? My amendment would prevent President Trump, Elon Musk, and indeed members of Congress who earn more than the top 1% of Americans from benefiting from these tax cuts or the companies they control. Roughly 75% of Americans want us to ban members of Congress from trading individual stocks. The idea that we should not be taking action that benefits the wealthiest among us is very popular. So I urge my colleagues to vote for my amendment, and I yield back.
Is there further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, questions on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Recorded vote, Madam Chair.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman?
No.
Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy?
No.
Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin?
No.
Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy?
No.
Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott?
No.
Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith?
No.
Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack?
No.
Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Yes.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Mr. Neguse?
Aye.
Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Leisure Fernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Leisure Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
No. The clerk will report the total.
3 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Are there any further amendments? Mr. Neguse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have an amendment to the rule. I move the committee make an order amendment number 28 to H.Con. Res. 14, offered by myself, which creates a point of order against legislation that reduces funding for state or local law enforcement. The amendment, if I might.
Go ahead.
The amendment is very simple and straightforward. Creates a point of order to prevent any legislation from being brought up in connection with this, but of course the reconciliation instructions, that would cut state or local law enforcement funding. I would hope that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle would join me in protecting funding for state law enforcement and for local law enforcement. There are a variety of programs that your local police departments, your local sheriff's departments rely upon. Federal grant funds, the COPS program, various DOJ programs. All this amendment does is protect them. And I would hope that my colleagues would join in this effort, that this could be a bipartisan effort. I don't know how you can vote against this amendment and tell your sheriffs and your local police departments that you've done so, when we know that this amendment would prevent the kind of draconian cuts that we've already seen warnings of as part of this larger debate about the Republican budget resolution. So I would just beg of my colleagues to join us in this effort. Let's support local law enforcement, and let's pass this amendment. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Chair.
Ms. Leisure Fernandez.
So the American people really deserve to know if Republicans are willing to defund the police to give tax cuts to billionaires and the largest corporations. And this amendment would make sure the funding local police departments receive from the federal government is safe. In 2023, North Carolina got $9 million in federal funding for local police departments. Are you willing to protect that? Texas got $25 million, Minnesota got $4.4 million, South Carolina $5.9 million. Are you willing to protect the cops, the burn, the different kinds of funding that, especially in rural America, our sheriffs depend on? They're looking to us to protect that federal funding. And with that, I support this amendment, and I yield some time to my colleague.
I just want to echo the point articulated so well by my colleague from New Mexico, Ms. Ledger Fernandez. Again, just to be clear, there may be sheriff's associations, local police associations following these proceedings from New York, Texas, North Carolina, across the country. I don't think it's a lot to ask to pass a 20-word amendment, 20-word amendment that just simply says we're not going to cut state and local law enforcement, that we're not going to allow that on our watch. And I would hope there'd be at least a few members on the other side of the aisle that would join me in that effort. I've heard them year after year after year offer criticisms of various statements made by folks on my side of the aisle. I would just simply implore you, here's an opportunity to support local law enforcement. And I believe, I'm just saying this, I mean, can't predict the future, but I suspect that if this budget resolution passes, and if the underlying reconciliation bills consistent with the instructions pass, that there are going to be a lot of local police departments and local sheriffs approaching Republicans asking why they voted in favor of cutting their departments. A great way to prevent that is just by voting for this simple amendment. So I yield back.
Madam Chair.
Just a moment, Mr. McGovern. I have a bill to codify qualified immunity, and I challenge my colleagues to co-sponsor that legislation. In the meantime, let's stop creating a long list of points of order. We could do that all night for every constituency.
Well,
Now, Mr. McGovern.
Madam Chair, I'm going to say that law enforcement are not just every constituency, number one. Number two, I met with a number of my law enforcement officials when I was home, and many of them are still reeling over the fact that one of Donald Trump's first act was to pardon those who violently attacked this Capitol and beat up cops right in this very building. And so there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of resentment, and there's a lot of questioning of whether or not we are loyal to our law enforcement. And I would say that supporting Mr. Negus's amendment might be a good gesture for all of us to support, to demonstrate to them that we have their backs. And with that, I yield back.
And since it was my time, I'd also point out, Mr. McGovern, that we have not heard Republicans condemn President Trump for pardoning those violent offenders. Americans across the country are upset about the pardoning of the violent offenders, many of whom have gone out and been convicted of other crimes. And yet, our Republican colleagues are silent on that. And so I agree with you. Supporting law enforcement, supporting our sheriffs would be a great way of showing that you stand with law enforcement. And with that, I yield back my time.
There's been a lot of Academy Awards that are earned here tonight with all this pearl clutching going on the other side of the dais, and it's really rich coming from the party of defund the police. I mean, let's get real here. First, you're trying to scare seniors. Then you're trying to scare people that their kids' school lunch is going to get taken away. The only threat to school lunch is Michelle Obama, okay? And now we're here trying to say, we're trying to say that I didn't talk over you, so you don't need to talk over me. You've talked more than anybody in this room tonight.
This is ridiculous.
Why don't you pipe down for a second? Yeah. because what has happened in this room the champions of law enforcement are on this side of the dais, not that. The record speaks very clearly for itself. How many of you took a knee in the summer of 2020? I yield back.
The question is on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Roll call vote.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy?
No.
Mr. Roy, no. Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy?
No.
Mr. Langworthy, no.
No.
Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith?
No.
Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack?
No.
Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Mr. Neguse?
Aye.
Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Leisure Fernandez? Aye. Ms. Leisure Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
Clerk will report the total.
3 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Mr. Neguse?
I thank the chairwoman. I have an amendment to the rule. I move the committee make an order amendment number 33 to H-Con Res 14, offered by myself, which creates a point of order against legislation that would result in a reduction of funding for the Crime Victims Fund. Madam Chair, this amendment is similar to the amendment that I offered previously, but this connects to a particular fund, the Crime Victims Fund, which of course I know many of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle are well aware of. It's an issue that I have worked on with my local district attorneys, and I suspect many of you have worked on as well. And again, I recognize the gentleman from New York is bothered by this particular debate. He's welcome to be bothered by it. He made references to Academy Award speeches and the like, and references to Michelle Obama and all the rest. Just to be clear, this was all in response to a pretty simple amendment that simply said local sheriff's departments in New York and in Colorado shouldn't be cut by this budget resolution. You have a different view on this. That's fine. You're entitled to that view. You voted against that amendment. Your constituents can reach their own conclusions the same way mine will about my votes. But these are amendments made in good faith. I can assure you of that. Certainly when I'm talking to my local police departments and my local sheriff departments, as I did this week, who are very concerned about budgetary decisions that House Republicans are making, rest assured, this isn't some abstract item. These are real grant monies that go to your district, police departments in your district just as well as mine. So, if you want to vote against them, that's your right. But don't accuse members on this side of the aisle of giving Academy Award speeches or whatever other pejoratives you'd like to use. The same applies to this simple amendment. If you believe that this budget resolution should not implicate funding for the Crime Victims Fund, then you can vote for the amendment. That's why I'm going to be voting for it. If you disagree with that, and you might have intellectual reasons, to oppose it, that's fine. But it is an amendment made in good faith. I care about making sure that the Crime Victims Fund does not get cut. My district attorneys in my district care about that. The victims organizations in my district care about that. And they are entitled to a vote, which is why I ask my colleagues to support this amendment.
Madam Chair?
Just a moment, Mr. McGovern. Does anyone on our side wish to respond? No, Mr.
So I just want to, again, support Mr. Neguse's amendment, and as the person who was told to pipe down, I'm never going to pipe down, on issues that I think are important to my constituents and the people of this country. And I'm really sorry that we pointed out that you don't really actually support the police, that you just pretend to support the police. And I think here's a way to put that notion to rest. I mean, this should be a non-controversial amendment, offered in good faith, and I hope all my colleagues, Democrats and Republicans, will support it. I yield back.
The question is on the amendment. Ms. Leisure Fernandez.
Madam Chair, I'd also like to put out that the Brookings Institute has done an analysis of funding between Republicans and Democrats, and it found that Democrats fund their local police through grants at much higher levels than Republicans. And Democrats increased funding for the FBI that provided some of these grants when we were in Congress. And Democrats passed various laws to increase funding for police. And I can enter it into the record, but it's a little late, so I'm going to pass. I just encourage you, I'll send it over to you, Mr. Langworthy, so you don't have to look it up. Thank you.
Now, the question is on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no? No. No. In the opinion, chair, the noes have it. The amendment's not agreed to. Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack? No. Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern? Aye. Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Mr. Neguse? Aye. Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Ledger-Fernandez? Aye. Ms. Ledger-Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
Madam Chair votes no. And how is Mr. Roy recorded?
Mr. Roy is not recorded.
No, please.
Mr. Roy, no.
Clerk will report the total.
3 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment's not agreed to. Ms. Ledger-Fernandez.
Madam Chair, I have an, oops, sorry. I move the committee make an order amendment 55 offered by myself, which states that shall not be in order to consider any bill or joint resolution that would result in a net reduction of benefits under Medicaid. We had some discussion over the importance of preserving Medicaid earlier. This would do a blanket preservation of Medicaid, especially because it is a lifeline for so many Americans in rural America. And I've pointed out some of these facts earlier. Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program funds care for over 37 million kids across every corner of the country. That is half of our country's children. They live in every state, and they come from every background. It also covers 35 million adults. For many families, Medicaid provides preventative care, vaccines, and visual and dental care, and it presents more expensive health care. All of this will be ripped away from families because of the cuts made in this budget proposal. I believe it is immoral to strip health funding from those in need. I urge my colleagues to support my amendment to protect Medicaid, and I yield back.
Does any other member wish to speak on the amendment by Ms. Ledger-Fernandez? Hearing no further comments, the questions on the amendment, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no? No. No. Opinion chairs have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack? No. Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern? Aye. Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Mr. Neguse? Aye. Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Ledger-Fernandez? Aye. Ms. Ledger-Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No, and how is Mr. Roy recorded?
Mr. Roy is not recorded.
No.
Mr. Roy, no.
The clerk will report the tally.
3 yeas, 9 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Ms. Ledger-Fernandez, you recognize.
I have amendment. Since the committee was unwilling to protect Medicaid in general, I am going to ask Republicans to commit to their statements about families' values and support protecting new mothers and newborn babies. Medicaid funds the care for more than 40% of all births in the United States, 40%. The number is even higher in rural areas. Giving birth should not be a partisan issue. Republican women give birth, Democratic women give birth, independent women give birth. It happens all across the country, and so many of them need Medicaid so that they can both get assistance and get those babies assistance. Without this Medicaid funding, mothers and babies might not get postpartum care, especially, as I've mentioned, in rural areas. Access to maternity and postpartum care is essential to the ongoing wellness of mothers and their babies, and I think that we should be protecting mothers and their babies rather than giving Republicans billionaire tax cuts. So without this amendment, Republicans would undeniably put millions of new mothers and newborns across the country in danger. Who will join me to stand up for mothers and their newborns? And with that, I yield back.
Is there further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, the question is on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed, no? No. In the opinion, Chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Madam Chair, request a recorded vote.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack? No. Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern? Aye. Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Mr. Neguse? Ms. Ledger-Fernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Ledger-Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
2 yeas, 8 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment's not agreed to.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Ledger-Fernandez.
Madam Chair, I have a couple of amendments, and I think it's really important that the American people know where this committee stands with regards to the various aspects of Medicaid. Because if we weren't willing to protect women and their children, are we going to be willing to protect nursing home residents? Where your parents or grandparents may be receiving care? Are we going to be willing to protect individuals with disabilities? I move the committee to make an order amendment number 71 and 73 offered by myself. More than 1 in 3 individuals with disabilities, that's 15 million people, are on Medicaid. This includes 2.3 million children, 8.8 million working age adults, and 4.4 million adults aged 65 and older. Disabilities, these are people who can't work, who need this care. These are people, with regards to nursing homes, who need help. In my state, 67% of nursing home residents rely on Medicaid. In Pennsylvania, 64% of nursing home residents rely on Medicaid. In Georgia, 72% of nursing home residents rely on Medicaid. So the question is, once again, who do you stand with? With the people who have disabilities, with the grandparents, with those who require nursing home care, or the billionaires that will benefit from this budget resolution? With that, Madam Chair, I yield back, and I urge a yes vote on my motion.
Does anyone wish to speak on the amendment? Hearing no comments, the question's on the amendment. All those in favor by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
A recorded vote, Madam Chair.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack? No. Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern? Aye. Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Mr. Neguse? Ms. Ledger-Fernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Ledger-Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
Clerk will record the total.
2 yeas, 8 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Ledger-Fernandez, you're recognized.
Madam Chair, I have 2 amendments that affect both women's health and violence against women. I move the committee make an order amendment number 51 offered by myself, which would protect women's health research, including breast cancer and cervical cancer research, and number 70, which would protect funding for programs that prevent violence against women. 1 in 4 women will experience physical violence by their partner in their lifetime. Let me repeat that. 1 in 4 women. You all know some woman in your life, a sister, a wife, a friend, who has been beaten by her partner or who has been raped. The Violence Against Women Act was landmark legislation that brought life-saving programs and services to survivors of domestic violence across the country. Yet 107 Republicans voted against the reauthorization of that bill. And President Trump immediately threw the violence against women programs into chaos when he froze the funding and took support away from survivors. So this is not hypothetical. President Trump has already frozen the funding for women who survive abuse and rape and assault. With regards to women's health research, breast cancer is the second most commonly diagnosed cancer in the U.S. and the second leading cause of death from cancer in women. I'm sure once again, everybody in this room knows somebody who has had breast cancer. I am a survivor myself. Thanks to the incredible research at the National Institutes of Health, countless women are alive today because of breast cancer research. We've made incredible progress, but we need to make more. And once again, this is not hypothetical. Trump has already completely stopped women's health research. Make no mistake, women you love will die without additional funding on the research that can save them. So, Chairwoman, voting on this motion could, if you vote, you could be voting to increase the 44,000 deaths caused by breast and cervical cancer each year. You will also be voting against protecting women from violence. And with that, Madam Chair, I move my amendment.
On the amendment. Hearing none, the question is on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Request a recorded vote.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack? No. Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern? Aye. Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Aye. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Ms. Leger-Fernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Leger-Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
Clerk will report the total.
3 yeas, 8 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Madam Chair, I have an amendment.
Ms. Scanlon, you're recognized.
Thank you. I move the committee make an order amendment number 14 offered by Representative Randall, which would strike instructions that would result in cuts to Medicaid, which provides critical health care for more than 72 million Americans. We've talked a lot tonight about the drastic toll that Medicaid cuts would have on our country, and our colleagues have repeatedly tried to argue, despite the vast weight of evidence to the contrary, that this bill will not lead to Medicaid cuts. So if our colleagues genuinely believe this bill won't create deep Medicaid cuts, now's the time they can prove it. This amendment would strike the instructions to the Energy and Commerce Committee and thereby prevent draconian cuts to Medicaid. If you think Medicaid's important, if you think Americans deserve health care that they can afford, then we can't cut nearly $1 trillion from Medicaid. Let's make this amendment in order so that our colleagues can at least debate one of the most controversial and harmful provisions in this budget bill. And in making this argument, I would refer to the pages and pages from the recommendations for areas to cut from Medicaid for the Energy and Commerce Committee. I would also refer back to the documents I introduced into the record earlier from the Republican Hispanic Caucus and the reporting on Mr. Cruz suggesting to cheers that Medicaid cuts need to occur. And with that, I would yield back.
Anyone else wish to speak on the amendment? Hearing none, the question is on the amendment. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no? No. Opinion chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
I would request a roll call vote.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? Mrs. Houchin? Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack?
No.
Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern? Aye. Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon?
Aye.
Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Ms. Ledger Fernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Ledger Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair?
The clerk will report the total.
3 yeas, 8 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Madam Chairwoman, I have another amendment.
Ms. Scanlon, you're recognized.
I move the committee make an order amendment number 40 offered by Representative Omar, which creates a point of order against any legislation to repeal the prescription drug negotiation provisions from the Inflation Reduction Act. Drug price negotiations have already saved billions of dollars a year. The government now spends less on prescriptions for seniors, and this drives down the deficit. It's one of the best win-win policies we have. It saves seniors money and it saves the country money. But our Republican colleagues seem to be taking their cues from the pharmaceutical industry, and so they're planning to undo this part of the Inflation Reduction Act in their forthcoming reconciliation bill. This amendment would simply allow Congress to protect this valuable cost-saving program from being repealed. I'd yield back.
Anyone else wish to speak on the amendment? Hearing no comments, the question is on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no.
No.
No. In the opinion chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
I would request a roll
The
call.
clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? Mrs. Houchin? Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack?
No.
Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern? Aye. Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon?
Aye.
Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Ms. Ledger Fernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Ledger Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
3 yeas, 8 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment's not agreed to.
Madam Chair, I have an amendment.
Ms. Scanlon, you're recognized.
Thank you. I would move that the committee make an order amendment number 43 offered by Representative Panetta, which replaces the budget's GDP estimates with the GDP estimates from the CBO's baseline. We heard extended discussion of this topic when our witnesses were here because Republicans are playing games with the metrics used to score their budget bill so they can hide that their bill would explode both the deficit and the debt. They're using made-up numbers for GDP growth that no one, not the Congressional Budget Office, not Wall Street, and that no reputable economist thinks is possible. This is important because it means that Republicans can lie about the pay-fors for their tax giveaway to billionaires. They can hand-wave and say that future tax revenues will be higher because economic growth will be higher. But it's nothing more than wishful thinking that misleads the public about the real cost of this dangerous budget plan. This amendment is simple. It would swap out the bogus GDP numbers in the budget resolution and replace those numbers with the CBO's numbers, which are in line with outside analysts and Wall Street. So I'd ask for a yes vote on my amendment. Yield back.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, the question is on the amendment. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
I would ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Scanlon requested, the clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? Mrs. Houchin? Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack?
No.
Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern? Aye. Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon?
Aye.
Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Aye. Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Ledger Fernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Ledger Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 8 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment's not agreed to.
Madam Chair, I move the committee make an order amendment number 61 offered by myself to protect funding for the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. Only a month into office, President Trump has already betrayed rural America, betrayed our farmers when he froze $800 million of funding to farmers and ranchers across America from the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, or EQIP, as it is better known, and anybody in rural America knows it as EQIP. EQIP provides funding and technical assistance for vital conservation projects that help ag producers improve soil health and protect against drought to put food on our tables. Once again, members of this committee have millions of dollars that have been frozen by President Trump. So this is something that we are concerned about, and we want to make sure it is protected because of the benefits it provides. I would encourage those listening to go to our websites, to go to our social media, because we have put up there the cuts that occur in your district to Medicaid, to Medicare, to education, to the ag programs in both Republican and Democrat districts. Rural America deserves a government that keeps its word. These American farmers and ranchers entered into contracts with the federal government, who has now said, we don't know if we're going to pay you. My amendment would make sure that EQIP funding is protected from any further cuts. So who'll join me to make sure our farmers and ranchers have the support they need to keep affordable food on our tables? I urge my colleagues to vote for my amendment, and I yield back.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Scott.
I just want to make sure that anybody watching knows that Donald Trump has confirmed that all IRA, EQIP, and CSP contracts signed prior to January 20th will be paid. The funding has been officially approved for release. So anything other than that, fear-mongering. Thank you.
Gentlemen, if I could just point out for the record, especially after that last comment, you know, we've been watching this administration in the first few weeks, you know, and this creation of this Doge headed by this guy, Elon, whatever. I mean, Doge fired workers who manage nuclear waste. Hundreds of federal employees tasked with working on the nation's nuclear weapons program were laid off February 13th. But that move was largely rescinded because how stupid it was. Then they fired food inspectors. Around 700 people who work for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention were fired. USDA actually fired people working on the bird flu. So forgive me and forgive us if we don't trust Donald Trump or Republicans when they tell us, don't worry, be happy. We don't trust you guys when you say that you're not going to cut important programs. Because even when courts have intervened and stopped some of these freezes, the administration finds another way to slow walk it. So if I were, you know, a farmer listening to this discussion, until I get a check, until it is proven, I wouldn't trust anybody. I wouldn't trust this guy to tell me the correct time. You know, so my mother would say he lies like a rug. And we've seen that over and over and over again. The New York Times front page story yesterday was all about the lies that have been put forward that have since been refuted. But so many lies come out, we can't catch up to the ones previously. So, you know, if I were our farmers, anybody receiving federal aid, I would hold off until I see the proof. Yield back.
And
Madam Chair.
Yield back.
The colleague has yielded to me. I would point out that farmers in my district have not seen their checks. So although that might be said, they have not received their checks. And they told me this, that we need to decide whether we're going to plant right now. I need to decide whether I'm going to put the seed down so that I can grow that wheat, which will then go to feed the cows for our dairy farms. We have delicious cheese. If anybody wants to New Mexico and have some delicious green chili, garlic cheese, come to my district. It's the dairy farmers who depend on the dairy farms who depend on people like the farmers I met with who are waiting for their checks. And one of the other reasons they're not going to get their checks is in New Mexico alone, they let go of 35 members of NRCS who are supposed to help in approving those grants. So when you fire the people who have to approve the contracts and move the money, you are delaying the funding. And when you delay that funding, you are delaying the decisions as to, do I have the money to plant my crop in the spring?
Madam Chair, I would
Mr.
just point
Scott.
out that if we can't get a reference price for America's farmers so that the reference price reflects the increased input cost of fuel and fertilizer and labor over the last couple of years, the cost of groceries is going to go up in this country because there's going to be a whole lot less food planted. With that, I yield.
The question is on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion, chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott?
No.
Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith?
No.
Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack?
No.
Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern? Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Aye. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Aye. Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Leisure Fernandez? Leisure Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 8 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment's not agreed to. Ms. Leisure Fernandez, you're recognized.
Myself, which would protect funding for programs serving, which would, move the committee to make an order, amendment number 64, offered by myself, which would protect funding for Indian tribes. The federal government has a trust responsibility to tribes, but yet we've never adequately funded the programs that benefit that. What's worse is that last month, Trump and Elon Musk indiscriminately fired federal employees who work on these programs, and they have found themselves with frozen funding. In my own district, 1/4 of the staff at the Southwestern Indian Polytechnic Institute was fired. 1/4. You cannot run a college when you have gotten rid of 1/4 of the staff. We need to stop these firings and funding freezes, and we need to honor our trust responsibility. My amendment simply makes sure that the House doesn't pass a bill that would take away funding from tribes. I urge my colleagues to vote for it, and I yield back.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing this kind of behavior all across the country right now. Our local wildlife refuge had 1/4 of their employees fired last week, and now they have to programming. So the kind of indiscriminate slash and burn, I believe it's been referred to as a wood chipper program that's emanating from the White House and with Mr. Musk just has to stop. And I wish our colleagues would join us in putting a stop to it. I yield back.
The question's on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion, chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Leisure Fernandez, you're recognized.
I move the committee to make an order amendment number 57 offered by myself, which would ensure that we do not reduce funding for disaster assistance programs. Communities across the country, from North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, through Kentucky, and all the way through New Mexico and California, are suffering from natural disasters. The governor of North Carolina just wrote to President Trump requesting $19 billion to recover from flooding. The California governor requested nearly $40 billion to rebuild after the fires. Yet we have heard President Trump say we should get rid of FEMA. We should get rid of the programs that are essential at HUD, at FEMA, and other places so these communities can rebuild. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen the floods in my district that have destroyed homes, and I've seen the fires that have caused so much destruction. after a disaster, we need to come together to rebuild. That means ensuring that the federal government has the funding to help these communities. So my amendment would protect assistance funding from any cuts under your budget reconciliation proposal. I urge my colleagues to support my amendment, and I yield back.
The question is on the amendment. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Recorded vote.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy? Mrs. Houchin? No. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? No. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott?
No.
Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? No. Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack?
No.
Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern? Aye. Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Aye. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Aye. Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Ledger Fernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Ledger Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 8 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Hearing no further discussion, the questions on the amendment from the motion from the gentlewoman from Indiana. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no.
No way.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion is agreed
We
to.
ask for a roll call on that, Madam Chair.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach?
Yes.
Mrs. Fishbach, aye. Mr. Norman?
Yes.
Mr. Norman, aye. Mr. Roy?
Aye.
Mr. Roy, aye. Mrs. Houchin?
Aye.
Mrs. Houchin, aye. Mr. Langworthy?
Aye.
Mr. Langworthy, aye. Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Mr. Scott, aye. Mr. Griffith?
Aye.
Mr. Griffith, aye. Mr. Jack?
Aye.
Mr. Jack, aye. Mr. McGovern?
No.
McGovern, no. Ms. Scanlon?
No.
Ms. Scanlon, no. Mr. Neguse?
No.
Mr. Neguse, no. Ms. Ledger Fernandez?
No.
Ms. Ledger Fernandez, no. Madam Chair?
Aye.
Madam Chair, aye.
The clerk will report the total.
9 yeas, 4 nays.
The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. Is there any other amendment or discussion? The motion to report is agreed to. Accordingly, Ms. Houchin will be managing the rule for the majority.
I will for the minority.
Mr. McGovern for the minority. Without objection, the committee is adjourned.